Have you ever wondered why Nigeria, a nation so rich in culture and potential, spent nearly 3 decades under military rule? It's a story of ambition, power struggles, and a constant battle for the soul of the nation. This is a summary of the times the military intervened and ruled Nigeria. Please note, as much as the stories are true, we have made every effort not to use the real images of the people involved out of honor and respect for them. Let's journey back in time, starting from the very first tremor that shook the foundations of Nigeria's young democracy. Our story begins in 1966, just 6 years after Nigeria gained independence from Britain. The atmosphere was tense, filled with ethnic and political rivalries. On January 15th, a group of young, idealistic, but ultimately misguided army majors, led by Chukwuma Kaduna Nzigwe and Emmanuel Ifejuno, launched Nigeria's first-ever military coup. They called it Operation Damisa, or Operation Leopard. Their stated goal was to end corruption and ethnic division. However, the coup had a bloody outcome. High-profile political leaders, mostly from the northern and western regions, including Prime Minister Sir Abubakar Tafawa and the Premier of the northern region, Sir Ahmadu Bello, were assassinated. The Premier of the western region, Samuel Akintola, was also killed. Interestingly, the coup plotters didn't succeed in taking full control. The most senior-ranking military officer at the time, Major General Johnson Agui Enigbo, suppressed the coup. But in a twist of fate, the remaining civilian government, in a state of panic and disarray, handed power over to him. So, while the majors could technically failed, it ended Nigeria's first republic and ushered in its first military government. This set a dangerous precedent. The Iron Sea regime was short-lived. The January coup was perceived by many in the north as an Igbo-led plot to dominate Nigeria, especially since key Igbo political leaders were spared. This perception, whether accurate or not, fueled resentment and a desire for revenge. 6 months later, in July 1966, a counter-coup, often called the July Rematch, was staged by northern officers. This counter-coup was brutal. General Agui and the military governor of the western region, Colonel Adekunle Fujui, were kidnapped and killed. The violence spread, targeting Igbo officers and civilians in the north. It was a dark, tragic period that pushed the nation to the brink. Following the chaos, the young lieutenant colonel from the north, Yakubu Gowon, was installed as the new head of state. Gowon's government tried to hold the fragmenting nation together, but the damage was done. The tensions eventually exploded into the Nigerian Civil War, a devastating conflict that lasted from 1967 to 1970. After the war, Gowon famously declared no victor, no vanquished, and focused on reconstruction and reconciliation. He promised to return the country to civilian rule by 1976. But as the years went by, that promise seemed to fade. In 1974, Gowon announced that the 1976 handover date was unrealistic. This decision was deeply unpopular. On July 29, 1975, while Gowon was attending an Organization of African Unity summit in Uganda, a bloodless coup took place. Brigadier Murtala Mohammed, a key figure in the 1966 counter-coup, came to power. Murtala's reign was dynamic but tragically brief. He initiated a popular campaign against corruption, purged the civil service, and set a firm timetable for a return to democracy. His decisive style earned him widespread admiration. He was seen as a man of action who could get Nigeria back on track. But on February 13, 1976, less than 7 months into his rule, tragedy struck again. Lieutenant Colonel Buka Suka Dinka led an attempted coup. During the attempt, General Murtala Mohammed was assassinated in his car in Lagos traffic. The coup, however, ultimately failed. The plotters were rounded up, and Murtala's second-in-command, General Olusegun Obasanjo, reluctantly took over as head of state. True to his predecessor's vision, Obasanjo continued the transition program. He oversaw the drafting of a new constitution and the conduct of elections. In 1979, he did what many thought was impossible. He voluntarily handed over power to a democratically elected civilian president, Shehu Shagari, ending 13 years of continuous military rule and beginning the Second Republic. It seemed like a new dawn for Nigeria. But unfortunately, the Second Republic was plagued by the same issues that brought down the first: massive corruption, economic mismanagement, and political infighting. The optimism of 1979 quickly evaporated. By the end of 1983, the public was fed up, and the military was watching closely. On New Year's Eve, December 31, 1983, the soldiers struck again. Major General Muhammadu Buhari led a successful coup that toppled the Shagari government, citing the rampant corruption and economic decline as justification. The public, tired of the politicians, initially welcomed the military's return. Buhari's regime launched a war against indiscipline, imposing strict discipline and cracking down on corruption. While the anti-corruption drive was popular, the regime's methods were often harsh, suppressing press freedom and human rights. The economy also failed to improve. Discontent grew within the military itself. Just 20 months later, in August 1985, another palace coup took place. This time, it was Buhari's own Chief of Army Staff, Major General Ibrahim Badamasi Babangida, or IBB, who seized power. Babangida came to power with a smile, earning the nickname Maradona for his political dribbling skills. He promised to respect human rights and announced another transition program to return the country to civilian rule. His tenure was a complex mix of political engineering, economic reforms like the Structural Adjustment Program, and a seemingly endless political transition. The transition program was long and convoluted. Timelines were shifted multiple times, and political aspirants were banned and unbanned, creating widespread cynicism. Finally, after years of delays, a presidential election was held on June 12, 1993. It was widely hailed as the freest and fairest election in Nigeria's history. The presumed winner was a wealthy businessman, Chief Mko Abiola. But just as the nation was celebrating a new democratic chapter, Babangida did the unthinkable. On June 23, 1993, he annulled the election results, plunging Nigeria into its worst political crisis since the Civil War. Protests erupted across the country. Faced with immense pressure, Babangida stepped aside in August 1993, handing power to an unelected interim national government headed by Ernest Shanakan. This interim government was weak and lacked legitimacy from the start. It was a stopgap measure that nobody truly believed in. And it lasted only 82 days. The final piece of this turbulent era fell into place on November 17, 1993. The Secretary of Defense in the interim government, General Sani Abacha, a veteran of several coups, simply pushed Shanakan aside and declared himself head of state. Abacha's seizure of power was the final successful coup in this long, dramatic chain. It marked the beginning of one of the most repressive periods in Nigeria as history and slammed the door shut on the democratic hopes ignited by the June 12th election. From the idealistic majors of 1966 to the calculating generals of 1993, this cycle of coups defined a generation. It shaped the nation's political landscape, economy, and its very psyche. It's a complex history of ambition, betrayal, and the resilient, enduring hope of the Nigerian people for a stable and democratic future. Do you think democracy since 1999 has done better for the people of Nigeria? Thank you so much for joining me on this historical journey. If you found this insightful, Please hit that like button, share this video, and subscribe to the channel for more deep dives into history. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. See you in the next one.